Hi, everybody. Welcome again to another session or another series, shall I say, of Grounding into Simplicity. My name is Tish, and today I have a very good dear sister and friend who I've met this year in 2020 in Costa Rica. Her name is Rose Amaru, and she is currently in the USA, and she'll share with us a little bit where she is right now and give us a brief introduction.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm in the southern Santa Cruz County, and I'm here with my family and lovely country home, and we're set up like a very kid-friendly, happy little spot with my toddlers running around, and have been focusing on shifting my business to online so that I can still be able to serve people through this time of change and social isolation. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I think I just want to share, it's so interesting how so many of us really have the opportunity, even though we're in a certain industry, to kind of pivot our business and now come online. But with that being said, we have different aspects and factors that minimize the time or the capacity that we would have normally had to invest in going online. And I feel it sometimes kind of like shakes us off our center and makes us feel out of balance and ungrounded. So I'm curious, what is this whole concept that we're talking about, which grounding into simplicity? What does that look and feel like for you, and how is that showing up in your life currently?
Sure. So one of the things that has happened is that since all of this began in mid-March, I actually had just been returning shortly after we met in Costa Rica. Then the few weeks later, I had gone with my fellow priestesses to Egypt on pilgrimage. And so as all of this was blowing up, we were in a foreign country and cruising the Nile and visiting all these sacred sites. And so when I left, everything was, normal or business as usual. And then as we're traveling, all of these warnings and get all of our face masks and all of the things as we're traveling through airports. And in fact, as I was returning two days later after I got home, they had grounded all the flights so that people were stuck in that country and everything. And I feel like one of the things that really shifted for me from returning home that allowed me to really sit and feel in my center has been focusing on having a daily practice. And that's something that's in my mind, I know I should do. And have actually struggled for years to be able to do that. And then now as a mother with young children who get up, pretty regularly, 6:45, 7 o'clock, it's hard to get up early to be able to do that, especially, late at night. Finally, they're in bed, I can be like my own person again. So there's a temptation to stay up late, but through the process of going there and really experiencing sisterhood and community, I was able to ask for help. And I asked my sisters, I had helped her with something, and then she's like, well, how can I help you? And I was like, well, to be honest, what I really need help with is some accountability for my discipline to be able to do this morning practice, because I feel like Spirit has been telling me you need to do this over and over, and I haven't really been able to figure out how to get through my own mental hubris to be able to make it happen. And so with the help of my sister, then I've really felt held in her field of accountability. She's there, she's waiting for me, she's doing this for me specifically. Then it was much easier for me to show up and be there for her. And now I'm finding that I'm able to show up and be there for me. Now that it's been over a month now. We did actually a full 40-day practice, took a few days off, and now we're just starting a new 40-day practice. And so doing that and then really honoring noontime. And so whenever it's noon, we'll say some prayers and blessings for the day, and say some words that really help me center in at the beginning and then at the middle of the day. And I feel like these markers that then are giving stability to the day, which otherwise would just be sort of flowing and moving and just, oh, we're just here doing whatever, we're at home. Whereas if we're like on a schedule at work, then it would be like the structure set in there. So I guess one of the things that's helping me stay grounded is creating structure for myself and creating spaciousness. And where I have difficulty showing up, then asking for help, asking for support, and yeah, so I think those have been the most key factors, that, and then as having more time in the home, then taking that time to go through my closets. And we had just moved in January, so I have a lot of closets full of stuff that, you know, at the end of the move, we're like, just pile it all in boxes and throw it in there. And so what I'm finding is that as I'm cleaning up my act, I'm finding my own energy is more freed up and available to be used for whatever my creative projects are at the time. And it takes surprisingly more energy, which I'm sure we've all experienced, to go through these old things, but have it organized and then either to re-gift or recycle or throw away. Really frees up the energy so that I can be present in the present moment rather than having my energy pulled into the past. And then the last thing would be really connecting with the food and nature. So by going outside and creating gardens and getting the hands in the dirt and hearing the birds and taking care of my bees and spending time to be in nature, feel the sun on my skin. And I guess the last thing is spending time on embodiment and spending time to move in my body, feel in my body, experience the senses. So for me, that might look like dancing with my snakes, or setting aside time to be a lover, or setting aside time to really grow that meal, make that meal, and fully enjoy eating that meal. So things like that have really been supportive. The daily practice, paying attention to the food source, embodiment, and going outside.
Wow, that is incredible. I love all of those suggestions. Now, I'm curious to know, with your morning practice, do you also do movement, or is it more just like a centering meditation practice? And then these prayers that you say, are they, do they differ every day, or is it something that you say that is the same every day? And you know how you mentioned previously before our conversation, you said at nighttime, do you also do a little something at nighttime, or is it more just like relaxing and going to sleep? Like, what does that look like for you?
Okay, so yeah, I guess I could set something up for nighttime. One of the practices. I'll start in the beginning. In terms of the morning practice, we've come up with several different active breath work. It's not just the nothingness of like Zen meditation where you're letting the thoughts pass out. We're doing active breath work. Mostly tantric lineage breath work, where we're doing active, complete breaths, pulling energy up, pulling energy down, bringing out the heart. We're the Nadi Shodhana, alternating nose, bringing in some movement, some Qigong movement to awaken the body, and breath of fire type exercises, and some mantra and mudra practices. And so those are, we're a little bit more flexible in the beginning, but we've sort of like landed on some of the practices that feel good for us now. And then creating an openness to shift if the energy shift later, but we have a set thing that feels really good to just firm into. And one of the things that I feel has been good, it's the same practice, but it's different every day, is in ancient Egyptian, there's the word Heka, which is a spell, the Heka, Heka. And so if you think about putting letters together and creating a word, you're spelling. And so that is, and in the beginning there was the word. And so the word is what brings things into existence. It's the thought form, but then it's the vibration coming out. And so we will create a Heka spell in the morning, which is just a sentence that represents what we are focusing on that day. And so I might say, for example, this morning, I nurture seeds that may become mighty oaks. And so for this day, I've been feeling like a little bit stagnant, like I'm treading water. But then also there's this knowledge that I'm holding these seeds that are going to grow when they're ready. And so it's not like nothing is happening. It's the environment around it that's shifting for the right time. So so that was, for example, the spell for today. And then you had asked about an evening practice. And one of the things that after we do the formal practice that I've been focusing on is something called, I call a self-adornment practice. And so been working on this one for the past year or so, is that after my breath, or as I'm getting ready for the day, I'll put on the jewelry and I'll put on the makeup. And as I'm doing so, just reminding myself that I do hold this holy energy within, and this is the temple in which my Holy Spirit resides. And so creating that space to remind myself that I'm sacred. I mean, I don't need all this to know that I'm a sacred being, but on the one hand, it makes it easier to remember. And so as I'm getting ready, and then I feel more presentable, or feel like I'm more able to be sharing my holier side rather than my lower human side, which doesn't go away, but is much easier to mitigate and remember how to be in my higher self. And so then, yeah, at nighttime, there's the process of derobing, or putting all the pieces of jewelry to the side and putting that down and washing my face. And so I feel like that's really what I have going on for that, which kind of feels like this cyclical daily process of the descent of Inanna into the underworld, into the subconscious, merging underneath as my own naked self. And then rising forth once again, this like yearly cycle, but happening within one day.
I really love that. Now, and it's so true. And I think we just do it so habitually that we don't think about it as having it as a ritual. But when we live in a sacred way, we understand that everything is ritual. And that, like you say, it's like the things that we wear and what we put on is this vibe. We always say, how is your vibe? This vibrational field that you create for yourself. But then I think the attunement comes when we actually do the practices that embodies that, and this is what you've been doing, is by casting your spells in the morning, by saying your prayers, and understanding that these words has such a powerful vibrational field that helps to bring us into resonance. So we have a vibrational field, and then we have this adornments that we put on to uplift us, to remind us, and then living and breathing this prayer, the spells that we cast, is really the embodiment of it. So I love how you explained it. Such a deep resonance for me as well. Now, I'm also curious, share with us a little bit more about your, about what it was like for you when, life shifted. Because I feel like for many of us, there is a point in our life where we could feel there was a shift that was happening. And yet, and little did we know really where it was taking us or why it was happening. But we intuitively knew that something needed a shift, or perhaps we had a downfall or a complete breakdown. That's what happened to me. So I'm curious to know for you, Rose, what happened in your lifetime where you really had this opportunity to kind of like attune yourself and say, well, I'm choosing to step into my higher self, into my sacred being. If you wanted to share your story a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And so I might say that in this life I've led many lives, and my, I guess you could say, spirit animal that I resonate the most with is the serpent. And like the serpent, have shed my skin many times for it feels like a whole new being to come forth, and so have shed and recreated myself many times. But to speak to the most poignant moment, I've actually been writing a part of a book that'll be published next month, Ignite the Modern Goddess. And so you can check that out when it comes out on my website, roseamaru.com. But what I could say is that I grew up very alone. I was separated from my father's family when I was only 3 years old. He was a illegal immigrant, 17, when my mother was black sheep, was kind of hippie in her mid-20s, and you know what, he ended up, running around on the streets and became an addict, or maybe he was the whole time, and my mother just found out. And so being the black sheep of her family, we didn't really see her family much, as they were all pretty like hardcore Pentecostal, racist, bigots, and I'm this little brown girl that I always felt like I was a bit of an embarrassment to them. And so once we left my father's family, then it was just my mother and I and the whole world. And definitely grew up very different from everyone else, not having the grounding center of family or church or popular culture. We didn't have a TV, so I didn't watch TV until like high school, when I was allowed to watch one show a week. And so there was this like piece of me that never really felt like I got other people, or that other people got me. I like grew up a little bit feral, and I had a lot of heart. I could see all these wrongs and all these things happening in the world, where women weren't treated fairly, where animals weren't treated fairly, where there's so much hate and suffering in the world. And in middle school, high school, children can be really cruel. And so I really didn't quite understand, or really like feel like I fit in or understood it. And was like very intelligent, was able to do classes and schoolwork, and like it was so easy for me. And I think because I had read so many books. I came to this place of just feeling really like, what is the point? Why am I doing this? I was like a pre-med at UC Berkeley, and I was doing some internship at the National Defense Laboratory, and doing all this like high-end research. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be healing lives and saving people with this. And somehow along the way, like through, I think 9/11 had just happened, and at Berkeley, we actually had CIA agents come and tell us, yeah, this whole thing was planned. And I just felt really like disillusioned. And then I understood a lot of the research we were working on, ostensibly had a healing purpose, but then was also being used to create weapons. So I was like, well, duh, I'm at a weapons facility, and so had this kind of double whammy, along with having had a miscarriage with my boyfriend in college, and not a miscarriage, an abortion. And we didn't tell anybody about it. And so I think the combination of that sadness, and then the world sadness and the disillusionment, led me down this really dark path where I, to make a long story short, was living out of my car and addicted to drugs and selling drugs and addicted to them, and dating this kind of gnarly gangster who apparently was also a satanic priest. And that was kind of at the time when I started being open to spirit, having been a hardcore agnostic or atheist, actually. And so that's kind of a very dark place for the spirit to be opening up into, and had to deal with a lot of, I might even go so far as to say evil energy within and around me. And whew. And finally, after, I don't know, a year, however long I was in the underworld of that, I decided I wanted to leave this man, and had a few of his prized possessions of things, and so decided to go and return them. And we had been like making enough money usually to get kind of a seedy motel room in Oakland, and have somewhere to be for the night. And so I went to that place to return his items, and there was a few more people I didn't recognize when I got there. And so I was surrounded by all of these like shady looking characters, and they're questioning me like, where were you at? Like, why did you send this text message? This and this and that. And I was like, dude, I don't even know like what you're talking about. I had actually been separate from him for about a week or two, like gone on a bender, maybe slept for 3 days, and while I was asleep, somebody else had used my phone. And anyway, so there's these crazy text messages from my phone. They're like, you did this and this and this, trying to start a gang war. And I was just felt very like, what's going on? And one of the gentlemen decided to ask if anyone had any tobacco, any cigarettes. And I was like, well, I have some in my car. We'll just go and get it. And then they're like, no, you can't leave. I was like, well, just come with me. It'll be fine. You come with me. We'll get it. It's like, no, you can't leave. And at that point, I was like, woo, boom, 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 boom in my chest. And I got really scared at that point, and I tried to run away. And then my ex sent this female gangster after me, and she caught me pretty easily and dragged me back, and then started hitting my face and my chest and my arms. And I think like the real turning point for me is like as she's hitting me, all of a sudden I just felt so like indignant, and like, I came here in my full truth to return your shit and like leave like properly, like all of the hubris, and like let it go. And if I can't live in my truth and can't live in a world where I can be in my truth, then I don't want to be in it. Then forget it. And so all of this was happening really slowly in my mind, but she's like hitting me, and then I like put my arms out and I look her in the eyes and I say, I will not fight violence with violence, and I will not run away from my fears. And so I just stand there like this, looking at her in the eyes, and she's like still hitting me, but I could tell she's like what? And so time goes really slow at that point, and it's like like a cartoon, you know. And then there's this ball of white light that is like coming at me, and I mean, keep in mind I was like an atheist pretty much all my life, and so there's this ball of white light coming closer and closer, and when it came like super close to me, you can just like feel the love, like it was like feel the love light. And that's the first time I really knew that there was something outside of me, or maybe it was part of me, but something that just really loved me. And I always wanted to feel that there was a God that loved me, but that's what I really did feel. I felt that in my body, and I heard her say, Miha, you can continue doing what you're doing, or you can choose to serve me. And for me, it was like, no question, like, I'm with you. And so it was at that point in the hot and sticky summer of 2003 that I dedicated my life in service to the goddess and in service to the divine feminine. And it's only gotten better ever since.
Wow. Wow. I have goosebumps all over my body. Wow. What an incredible, incredible story. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Wow. Woo! Speaking that it is alive and that we are here to be of service for the light, then here it is. Now you know it from a sister that has gone through it. Wow, Rose, thank you so much for sharing that brave story. And what a blessing it is for us as humans to have anchored you back into this, you know, and wow, incredible. So from that experience, you know, and from your story, from how this all shifted from you, you're just like this incredible, super powerful woman. Like when I met you, all I remember was like looking at you and being around you, and it was just like this centered presence that you held. And then I didn't know, but I only found afterwards that those products that you were displaying was all yours. So tell us a little bit about all the beautiful things that came from your life now that you're in purpose and in center and living your highest truth.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's definitely been a long journey of coming back to myself, and from all of the traumas that happened. You know, I feel like whenever that happens, we lose a piece of ourselves that is like unable to withstand the fear or the pain of the trauma. A piece of us checks out, and so it's been a long process to reclaim and create a field of safety around myself. And you know, going through a lifestyle like that, there's going to also be a good amount of sexual trauma that's happened. And what I can say is that now at this time in my life, I definitely feel very powerful. I feel like I have a real purpose that's fulfilling for me to complete, and I have access to much more pleasure than I realized was even possible, and I'm living in a field of prosperity, which I definitely did not grow up in. And so all of these things and more I couldn't really have imagined in the past had I been like living for myself. And in fact, as part of my growing process, when I realized that my word and intention did have power, I started to ask for things or manifest things, and they would come into being, but they would feel very shallow and very empty. Because it was my little self that wanted these things, and it wasn't things that were nurturing or fulfilling for my own soul or for the world. And so it's not like fully answering your question, but I think that number one thing that really supported was coming to a space where I could be grateful for even the little things that I had. I could be grateful for even the hardship and pain that I went through, which allowed me to know myself and be able to harness this power that I do hold. And so gratitude being like really, really important. And then I would say the next thing has been really important has been embodiment work, to really feel comfortable and be able to move my body. It's been forgiveness work. Yeah. Because even if like truly terrible, terrible things can happen to people that don't deserve forgiveness for the people who perform them, but yet we deserve forgiveness from suffering that holding so much hatred and anger causes us to suffer. And I deserve to be free from that suffering, as well as anybody who's undergone severe trauma. Like deserves freedom from that suffering. I mean, even if the person that did it to you doesn't necessarily deserve it. So the forgiveness work being really important, and I feel like the plant medicines have been really instrumental for me in finding forgiveness for sexual trauma, finding forgiveness, for abandonment issues with my father, finding forgiveness, to myself for having made a lot of really stupid decisions, really careless, stupid decisions, because I didn't care. I didn't love myself. So there's a lot of forgiveness work there too. And so, you know, I've done quite a bit of work with the plant medicines, with the native ceremonies, going to sweat lodge and Temescal ceremonies, and working with the native elders and natural plant medicine ceremonies. And that's been really, really helpful to help reprogram and reset myself and clear a lot of the I would say a lot of the ick from all the people that I've associated with and all the things that I put my own self through. And then I've done, like I was saying, when I went to the temple. So let me back up just a sec. You know, through all of this pain and trauma, that's how I believe that the energy of the serpent has come through to me, as through the archetype of Chiron, which is the serpent bearer or the wounded healer, also known as Asclepius. And so it's through transforming and transmuting my own traumas and facing my own demons that now I feel like I'm able to really hold a space with compassion and no judgment for anybody that's gone through a hard time or might even blame themselves for having gone through it. You know, I can really feel like I understand what true suffering is, and I understand how people can be where they're at, and not judge it, because really I'm not better than anybody else. I'm, you know, just doing my thing. Definitely like the lotus rising from the muck, that's for sure. And so then circling back around to the temple, and it's been a really beautiful thing for me to then dedicate and find these practices that are creating like ceremony and ritual. And I feel like I learned a lot on my own or through spirit and the plant medicine, but there's something about working with people that have decades of experience that can really make me more self-aware of any gaps in my knowledge, and also make me more accountable and knowledgeable of wisdom, and be able to hold more wisdom. And so that's been a big part of the benefit, not only the sisterhood, but gaining wisdom and filling any gaps in my knowledge. And so working with the temple has been amazing for that. And then also you'd mentioned, are you saying the same words every time? Well, for the noon rite, yes, there are words that have been said by my elders in the tradition, and recreated from what we know of the Egyptian book of going forth by day, or the Book of the Dead. And so there's a lot of like tradition that I feel like is like grounding me in. And then having done Tantra teacher training, it's been like really incredible to unlock and be able to move through move my energy in a visceral way. I felt so cracked open by it that like I would close my eyes, take a breath, and I feel like I'm like leaving my body, going to other realms. So it's been like a process of like, okay, wow, now we're really like getting in some like weird shit, and like, okay, like ground that in. But it was really incredible because I have had a lot of blocks, and you know, and now, you know, a little weird to say it's in an interview, but like sexually, I feel like very able to experience so much pleasure. Like I can experience hundreds of orgasms. Is that you?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. And so, yeah, I was just speaking to being able to really hold and encompass so much pleasure, hundreds of orgasms in a night, like more quality, depth, texture, connection, intimacy than I've ever experienced. I feel like pleasure is our birthright, and that it's something that everyone has access to and is cut off from us. And is a source of power, is a source of our creative juices, creative life force that's then able to inform, like not only power our body and our immune systems to be boosted, but to power our projects and to give life to our manifestations or what we want, and power to move through our traumas. So sexual energy is really, really important. It's not just the life force energy. So yeah, you were speaking to some of the products. It's actually a product line that I'm an affiliate of, and so it's not my product line, but it's gone through like extensive testing and FDA clinical trials, and it's my pleasure to be representing Rosebud Women, especially with the name, my name being Rose, and it's Rosebud Women, and it's all these rose-scented, beautiful, organic, Ayurvedic, Chinese medicinal herbs. So yes, it's one of the ways that I'm shifting and moving to be able to support myself. And I thought about for a while making my own product line, and had been moving with formulas and testing and things like that, just on my own, like what's going to be good. But at the end of the day, like I only have so much time and energy to focus on things, and really what lights me up is to be able to witness people and hold space for people going through transformational moments and creating space for real change to happen, and for people to be able to shed their own skins and look at the beauty of who they really are underneath. And so that's really what lights me up and gives me pleasure. So it makes the most sense for me to be able to also share some of the best quality products that I know about without having to spend so much of my own time on product development, fulfillment, shipping, the law, all of these things. So that's been my pleasure to be able to share that. Also, through the native ceremonies, been able to support like necklaces like these, and support in the native families that I've been in ceremony with. And so there's a few different things I've been doing business-wise with that. But what I would say I'm really focused on now is holding the container for women to shed and release that which doesn't serve, so they can see who are you underneath, to step into your purpose and step into a vibrant life full of purpose, full of power, full of pleasure, and be open to the prosperity that is looking for you. And so yeah, starting some programs where I had women come in for Nagasage, which is serpent massage with the serpent on you, which is really like activation of the creative life force. It's the shed and release. It's the toning and balancing of the chakras. So I can help people with that as we are able to come in close contact again. But then I've also been figuring out ways to create connection through online ceremonies and rituals, and being able to hold each other accountable, just like I have my sisters holding me accountable in the morning practice. I'm holding my group of women, or they're their own people, but they're people I'm supporting, in the container of a 3-month container of going through the process of shed and release and expression, and doing some group calls through the Serpent Way. And so we'll be starting our next round on the solstice on June 20th. And so I would really love to invite anyone that feels excited by, Nagasage, or maybe one-on-one work, or really to join this this like held container, beautiful container I'm holding, to please you're invited to have a call with me and just see, like, does it really feel right? And would love to also offer a gift on how to unlock and activate more of your own vital life force energy.
Amazing. I'm so excited. I definitely want to check it out. And what we'll do is we'll put all of your websites and everything in the comments of this video so people can find you and just get in touch with you and really see if there's a resonance. Because for me, even just talking about it, I'm like, wow, I've never even heard of these things. I would love to find out more and see how we could support one another, you know, in this process of remembrance. So wow. Incredible. Well, thank you so much, Rose, for being present here today and sharing your story. Wow, what an incredible story. You had me in tears there for a moment. And it's just such an honor to know a woman that's so strong and that's gone through so much. So yeah, all the power to you, Mama. And is there anything else that you wanted to leave our listeners with? Maybe a little word of wisdom or anything that wants to come through before we close this?
I want to thank you so much, Tish, for inviting me to this platform and for the work that you're doing and supporting and honoring women and men. And and I just want to remind people that it's your birthright to experience pleasure. It's your birthright to walk in your power. It's your birthright to have divine right purpose and be able to fulfill that. And so it would be my honor and pleasure to support any of you that need support with that. So.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mama. Well, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you like this video, please share it, like it, comment. And I look forward to seeing you on another episode of Grounding into Simplicity. Mwah.
Thank you, Tish.
You're welcome.